about?
Yeah, like what's the general?
Uh, so basically, I've been obsessed. We get into this, we get obsessed with FPV. And over the past few years, like I've designed drones, and I love talking to people in the community that are doing the same thing. Like just other pilots, other, editors, other people. Like I've been watching you for a long time. So
A lot of people have.
exactly. I was actually like, even with your name Kabab FPV, I was like, you actually got at Kabab as your username, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you like Kabab?
Yeah, of course, I'm Middle Eastern, so who doesn't like kebab as the Middle Easterner? Um, I just got lucky at the beginning. When I started, it was very early days, and I didn't even make a YouTube channel for the first 2 years. I was watching Mr. Steele, and then I just decided to. I got tired of props, and I started making videos about props, and then these manufacturers started contacting me, and it kind of snowballed from there because I have a background in development and manufacturing. So that's the direction I took it in. Nothing
Yeah.
special.
Well, you do like you know a lot of things, and I'm like, where does that come from? Like, does that come from you just kind of researching stuff, or like when I
Yes,
asked you about pushers, like how do you know that the physics stuff? Because it's like, for instance, for me, I'm a very feel and art, and I'm not I'm not technical, but often feel and like common sense usually align with science in a weird way.
absolutely. If you think of like I don't know, 75 years ago when people had jobs like uh, carpenter or something, you had to have some degree of intuitiveness to what you were doing. And not to say that I'm like so intuitive and special, but it's really not that complicated if you have that mindset of just intuition of how does this work? How does that work? Let's experiment with this. Let's play with that. Let's read something here. Let's read something there. I also have a background in a surprising amount of math, which I don't know any of anymore, and a surprising amount of science, which I don't pretend to know. And it's not there's not a whole lot that's super complicated, but then when you try to get into the really tiny minutia of things, it gets really ultra complicated. It's like if you think about just aerodynamics, a ball is very aerodynamic. Water droplets falling from the sky are very aerodynamic, but when you look at an F1 car, there's so much stuff going on there you can't even begin to pretend to know what's happening and what to change and what not to change. So it's kind of in that respect that you can get far enough with basic common sense, but then when you try to really push it into a direction of like developmentally kind of breaking new ground, that's when it gets really difficult. So up until a couple of years ago, I honestly don't think I've done anything special. I've just taken a common sense approach to everything, and it's just like yourself. You're looking at it. You can see with your own two eyes what you're looking at. What do you think is going to work? Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, then we'll go in another direction.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So it's like you really liked like the light agility.
Well, my that I live in LA, so I can't fly anywhere. Like it's really tough for me to find somewhere to fly or get freedom to fly anywhere. So I started moving in a smaller direction because it just gave me more opportunities to fly. That's as simple as that. When I started, nobody was doing anything, so I could really go wherever I want, and nobody really knew what was going on, so they didn't really care. But then when it started getting popularity, I couldn't go anywhere anymore. The cops knew what it was, all the patrols knew what it was, and they all told me to get out of here. So when I started flying the little things, nobody bothered me again because it's so tiny. It doesn't make any noise. Nobody notices, and that's the direction I went in. So then I tried to figure out a way to make it more fun.
Wouldn't you say the opposite then happened?
Where
Like from being told to go away, like when people see you fly the tiny things, don't you
uh,
find there's a lot more joy?
just as many people tell me to go away,
Really?
surprisingly. Yeah, and there was one guy that actually called the cops on me for flying a toothpick that was 60 grams. because he's saying, you know, you're flying it around. My dogs are here. They're gonna get hurt. And I'm like, I'm at a public park, sitting on a bench, flying something that's not even 100 grams. You can go ahead and call the cops. The cops came and they told the guy that they have to leave me that he has to leave me alone. And I told the cops I'm going to press charges if he doesn't leave me alone. And the cops said, yeah, you're fully within the right. You're flying a toy. It's a paper airplane. It's literally as light as a paper airplane. You can't be upset at somebody for at a kid for flying a paper airplane at a park. Like, you leave
Yeah.
them alone.
Yeah.
But that was the one time that a police officer protected me for anything like this. I have gotten held at gunpoint in the same location from a police officer as well.
A
For
police
doing
officer. A
it was
police
actually
officer.
a patrol, not a patrol, a ranger. It was a park ranger. So it was early in the morning. The park ranger just like snuck up on me and told me to freeze and put my hands up. And I didn't know what the hell was going on until I flew around and saw him holding his gun at me. And then I immediately put my hands up and I said, I can't see anything. Please let me take these goggles off my face. Please don't shoot me. I'm not doing anything special. I'm standing in the middle of an empty field with a backpack, goggles on my face, and a controller in my hands. This guy was so dumb; he didn't know what was going on. He thought I was he thought he had caught a terrorist, and he thought he was coming up to me because he's like, "Oh my God, this person is like bombing, you know, the Palisades or something." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm flying a toy. It's a toy. It's now falling over there. I'm not doing anything. I will leave right now. Please don't shoot me. I'm cool."
Did he apologize or anything?
No, he did not. He did not apologize, but he let me go after an hour, and I was like, I will never come back. You will never see me again.
Did you have the footage?
No, there was nothing. It was not being recorded,
Damn it.
unfortunately.
That would have been a fun story.
Yeah, I would have been. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people in the community that have been kidnapped, even in Mexico. I think there's one girl that was kidnapped in Mexico for flying, and they stole all of her equipment. And I think she was with a friend or something. They stole all their equipment, and it was just they were actual criminals. They weren't, you know, anything else. They were just criminals kidnapping people. But yeah, people have some crazy stories because we go to areas that are not common. We go to areas that are usually bandos. Homeless people sometimes are around. Not some of the greatest people are usually around. We're always looking for cool new places to fly, and that's just where it takes us.
Have you seen those accounts? I don't know. There's like one big account. Like I think it's like homeless people and drones.
No, I don't
It's
follow.
it's ridiculous. It's like that kind of stuff. I wouldn't want to do. You know what I mean? You don't want to bother those people. But
No,
there's a big account where like there's this guy that I don't know teases people with drones or like gives homeless people food with the drone or like just like it's a whole thing. Like it's a whole like niche like drones and homeless people.
so I think the most interesting thing about this overall hobby is that it's through this hobby you have access and you have the ability to learn so much about geopolitics, about manufacturing, about how the whole world works, about import export. I mean, right, since Trump was in office last term, he imposed these tariffs that made it impossible to essentially import almost all drone things, and I had no idea that it was like this. And I still am one of the few small businesses that are even aware of all these import taxes and the fact that China can ship direct to consumer, and it's just killing small businesses in America, and nobody seems to care. And it's heartbreaking, but it's just kind of the way it is, and it's just going to get worse now that Trump's back in. Not that Trump's bad. I'm not saying he's good or bad. It's just that it's
I'm in Canada and I don't care about politics. So.
well, I mean, Trump is trying to make Canada a 51st state. So
You know what? I like America. Like if we were American and I get American money, I'm happy. Like I'm not nationalistic. Like I'm just like to me, I think we should all just be people, you know. It's like most of us are not like most Canadians are not Canadian. Like most Canadians aren't even really proud of being Canadian. Most Canadians are like they say that they are what their parents are. I'll say I'm Spanish and Austrian. I won't really tell people I'm Canadian.
you guys, you guys sound like America, except that you don't know how bad our healthcare system is.
But then our taxes make up for that, right? Like we pay through the teeth with taxes.
What, you think we don't?
Our
In what
taxes are
world?
bad though.
Our taxes are equally as bad, and your taxes at least go and give you something. Our taxes don't give us anything. So
Yeah.
I'm in the my family has lived in the Palisades for 30 years. Since before it was a dirt road when we moved there. It was nothing. There was nothing there. Now it's this like wealthy place, and all the people that have been grandfathered in just had all their houses burned down. The federal government is probably going to give California $100 billion for this disaster. I don't think any of that money is going to get to the people. I think
Yeah.
none of it is going to get to the
No,
people.
of
It's
course
all
not.
going to get sucked up by the state, and everyone's going to get stuck suing their insurance companies that all ran out of money and all went bankrupt. And no one is going to build anything for 2 years. Not a single person in that neighborhood is going to lay a single brick for. It's not even going to be cleaned up for a year and a half, and it's going to be permitting hell and insurance hell, and this is going to be 5 years before anybody actually begins to kind of see a potential for when they might be able to move back in. They're all going to sell. 60-70% of the area is going to leave, go to Newport or Beverly Hills or somewhere else. The I'm in a duplex, and the unit downstairs just went up for rent for 30% more than what I'm paying here,
But how
and it's
much
a
is rent?
dungeon.
Like how much is rent where you are?
It's 5,700 here for
Okay.
2 and then below us is a smaller unit, and now they just listed it for 6,500
Huh.
because of the disaster. Because now they can jack up the rent, they can get more rent.
Yeah. Like here the housing market's a mess too. The thing is, like some poor places, like in the States, though, you look and people still have a house. Like here, like nowhere you can even have a house. A house here is like $2 million.
That's would be free in LA, in California. 2 million
Yeah.
is free, would be great if you could find the house for 2 million. You can't find anything for 2 million anymore.
Oh,
It's anything that you want to live in starts at like 2.83. Just
yeah.
starts just to get into the market. So it's a it doesn't even matter how much money you make. You can't own a house.
It makes you want to move to Thailand or something. Don't you ever want to do that?
I would love to go. I would love to live in Korea. My wife is Korean. I've been there a couple times now. It is the most glorious just society I have ever seen. But they have tons of issues, social issues themselves.
Yeah.
But as an outsider going in, they are. I mean, I their Seoul is like 5 times the size of New York. It has a train station, a subway station that's 10 times the size of New York. Three levels of subways, spotless. You could eat off every surface, not a single speck of dust, no insects, no rodents, nothing. Beautiful. The trains look like they were just installed yesterday. It is incredible, and it's packed. You can't find anywhere to sit. There's nowhere to go. It's amazing. It's just incredible to see what a nation of people that have a single mindset and actually want to do well can do. And now they have all these TV shows, and I didn't even realize that all my favorite surgical instruments and implants and whatnot that I use, they all happen to come from Korea. I didn't even know until I started looking into it.
Nice.
So the Korean country has done exceptionally well over the last 50, 60 years. They came from nothing, and now they're a superpower, and they're doing something right. But also their culture is a little bit messed up here and there, but they're doing
Oh, I
something
know.
good.
I know a lot about like more Asian culture because like where I am, like I grew up with a lot of like Chinese, and I dated a few Korean girls too. So Jeo Bokum,
No.
like the deep fried pork and kimchi on a hot.
Oh, yeah.
That's like one of my favorite dishes.
Oh,
Because but okay, we're back to FPV. So the first time that you discovered it, like that you saw it, and then the first time that you flew it.
the first time I saw it, I was in residency in Pittsburgh. Actually, no, I was a senior in dental school, and I was so shocked. I was like, oh my God, I have to do this, but I don't have time for this. I have to go to residency. I have to do all this stuff. I can't do this. but
So where
it
did you see it
never.
though?
It was just online, just YouTube video, nothing
Okay.
special. It was actually on a forum. It was RC Group's forum that who was this guy? His name, oh man, he made like his own line of like super skinny frames way back then. Way back then. And oh dude, I was talking to Blackout the drunk or Black Black I think it was Blackout Quads, whatever his name was. Blackout, he like disappeared. This one dude that kind of started it with Trappy and everything, and they were flying through trees. And if you look back at the video now, it's like they were hovering in the middle of trees. They went flying through trees, but it looked so incredible because it was so alien. And I'm like, oh my god, this looks like Star Wars. I have to do
Yeah.
this. And I didn't know anything back then. I was in school my whole life. Like I left like RC everything as a kid. I never touched it. And back when I was doing anything with planes or cars, there was crystals. Like you'd have like a frequency that you'd have to plug into the plane and into the controller, and that's how you would link. And there was only like 10 frequencies, and it was ridiculous. And then I came back to it 20 years later, and it's like spread spectrum 2.4, and now you have 5.8 video. Back then there wasn't a 5.8 video yet; it was still 900 megahertz video or 2.4 video. The antennas were this big; it was enormous, but it was so incredible. And I think I saw it. I saw one person. I was in San Francisco. I saw one person flying it at the beach, just a random quadcopter, and I couldn't believe my eyes. And this was in the kind of early days when the Nintendo Wii controller was actually hacked to use the gyroscopes in them to fly.
Yep.
And I looked into it. I was like, oh, I could do this. I have to figure all this stuff out. You got to learn to like code things here and there. Unfortunately, I never learned to code. I was never a coder. And I gave up. I went into 3D printing. I'm like, this is easier. I can do 3D printing. It's super simple. And so I started building printers and selling printers and buying and selling computer parts for 3D printers with Bitcoin. This was 2009. I was buying and selling computer parts with Bitcoin. It was like 72 cents back then for a single Bitcoin. And at some point, I had like a couple hundred Bitcoin. I had all my school computers mining for Bitcoin while I was at home, and I was making like 3 Bitcoin a week just mining with school computers. Nobody knew. It was just running in the background, and it was an incredible time. And it's crazy to think back and just be like, if had I just done nothing, just held every investment I ever made, I would be retired 20 times over right now. Like easily retired. I would be able to buy half the Palisades if I just did nothing but purchase all of the things I bought, all the stocks and all the Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, whatever. And it's crazy to think. But then over the years, I realized that the reason why that worked out is because the people that are in that generation growing up are the ones that make things popular. So, like, I thought Tesla was awesome when I was at UCLA in undergrad. So I bought all Tesla stock. I had $20,000. I bought all of it in Tesla stock. It was $18 a share. And I was like, this is awesome. They're going to do amazing because this is so cool. And sure enough, my generation felt the same. And now it is what it is. And that's kind of what happens. And that's what I tell kids these days when I take out their wisdom teeth. But kids are not very insightful these days. So it's very hard to figure out what
Well,
they're
they're
doing.
raised by screens, so it's very hard. It's
Screens, they're actually the newer generation that I'm now taking out the wisdom teeth, like 14, 15, 16, 17. They don't like screens. They don't want to use their phones. I've seen a lot of them with just basic smartphones. Like it doesn't have apps. It just calls and texts. That's it. And they're very intuitive about, I don't want this. This is poison. No, I can't eat this. No, everything is poison. And it's like they've been raised in a world where everything is poison. So they've kind of adapted to that. And a lot of them are really smart in that way, but their priorities are straight, but they're still pussies.
no, here it's I'd say it's not like that at all. It's like the generation right now. Here, like especially in Toronto, the whole agenda thing's been pushed with the whole gender crap. So it's just like when I look at some high schools, like you just see a whole pile of sad, confused kids that are just sad.
my high school burnt down. Not it didn't burn down. Like two small bungalows in the school burnt down. And I'm in the Facebook group still since I graduated high school, and they are looking for a new location to house all the students. Now, this is over 2,000 students that they're trying to move into either a community college or some other location or even another high school. But the actual high school itself is fine. Nothing happened. The reason why they want to move into another location is because they don't want the kids to have to go through the trauma of seeing one of the buildings having burnt down or being in the Palisades. This is the people. They coddle the kids, and then there's a debate on the Facebook group about, dude, nothing. It's fine. Like you literally are unaffected. You go there, clean up the building, wait a week or two for the air pollution to improve, air quality to improve. You're good to go. Like this is great. Like you don't even have to think about it. It's like 100 students are displaced. If you really want, send half the graduating class, half the seniors to a community college down the street. You're done. You have plenty of space. Go back to school.
See,
But it's
so
really
in a way, I miss the days. It was basically our parents' days, where when there was a problem, it was dealt with outside in the yard. You know what I mean?
it's the time when there's zero common sense, absolutely no common sense, and then you have
Yeah.
people defending Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, the mayor and the governor, for I don't even know what they're defending them for. And then you have the governor is spending, just in the middle of this disaster, put together a task force to spend $50 million on battling Trump on his deportation policies. So they're spending $50 million in the middle of this mess to protect the immigrants, which is great. No problem. I have no issue with that. It's just that I don't think now is the time. Now it's ridiculous that he's doing it now. Oh, I am? Oh, sorry. I didn't know my audio. Okay, I'm gonna take off the glasses because I think
Okay.
that's probably not doing well. Hello, does that work better?
Yeah. Okay. I think so.
Somebody said. I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know if it's not as good.
Does that sound better? Very good.
Yeah, yeah. So when did
So how
you
about
start?
what?
When did you start FPV?
I think I started at the best time because it was right when like so for me I breed snakes,
Oh, cool.
and I thought to myself, I wonder if I could feed a snake with a drone.
Oh,
And I had a toy drone from AliExpress, like a $30 like toy drone. So I put a dental floss with a little mouse on the end, and I fed a
oh my
snake.
God.
So I'm the first
That's
person in
it.
the world to feed a snake with a drone.
That's exactly what I
And
was imagining. You're dangling a mouse from a helicopter.
so this actually, it was the start of the death of my reptile channel, because
Oh,
I built a reptile channel to like 12,000 subscribers. But then I did this, and like the reptile community was like, "Oh my goodness, you're a terrible person. You put the snake in danger, blah 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 blah." And I don't know. Then I thought to myself, I got to go big now. I want to get a big drone. I want to go to the park and like feed an 8-foot snake at the park with a big drone and film it all. Like, just imagine that.
where are you finding an 8-foot snake?
I have one in the back. I
Oh,
got a room with like 80 snakes back there.
do they
So
do
if you
they
ever
know?
come to Toronto, you bring your kids for a tour.
Do they know you? Do the snakes know you? Like, can you take them out?
Oh, like you like cats. A snake is twice as nice as a cat. Yeah,
Wow. So you
twice
can
as
like go
nice.
to the park and then just like let it roam around and
Yeah,
then pick it up and take it
yeah,
home?
yep.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so then I look into getting a bigger drone, and I'm watching YouTube videos, and then UVA features showed up, like build a $100 drone, and then I saw FPV, and I was like, holy cow, you can fly!
Yeah.
Like, I've always wanted to fly, but I could never afford to like go take pilot lessons or whatever, but it's like growing up, Top Gun, like that was like one of my favorite things, like that idea of
Exactly what it
flying a
feels like.
plane.
Yeah, that's
So
what it
then
is.
I just went insane and I started consuming like everything on the internet. It was September. So by the time winter was over, I had a Tadpole Space Edition Carbon, whatever. So I had the Tadpole. I had the Petrel, that little like the little 6S Petrel from HGLRC.
Oh, okay.
It was a 3-inch 6S toothpick, and then the other one was the Atom RC Dodo.
Oh,
So I got these 3 little ones, and then I'm excited to go fly them. And I start flying them, and I broke all 3 of them by smashing the front right motor. And
typical.
each one had a different motor, and the electronics were different mounts. So the frames and the parts were incompatible. And it just kind of really, like, that was the start of like, I'm like, this could be better.
Yeah.
I noticed that manufacturers are making these drones, but they're not caring about the pilots.
So this is another insight that I've learned from this industry, which it's the same in every industry. Uh, in in America, on the Western world, it's very hard to explain because we don't have anything like this. If you have all of the manufacturing in the world, if every day you wake up and you build a car, you build a computer, you build a whatever, all you're looking for is things to build. This is China. China has all the manufacturing in the world. For them, making a TV is like writing an essay on a piece of paper. It's like daily work for them. It's nothing special. So you're always looking for something to build so that you can sell it and make money. That's the way they make money. So they couldn't care less about the product. They don't care about the consumer. They don't care about anything at all. They just need to make stuff because that's the way they make money. That's the culture. That's what it is. So they couldn't care less if they're copying. They couldn't care less if they're reverse engineering. It doesn't matter to them. They just need to make something. They're not interested in marketing. That's not what they do. They don't know marketing. They don't know any of that stuff. Sure, the higher echelon of companies do all that stuff, same as America. But for the most part, the daily people, the normal workers, they don't know any of this crap. They just want to make something that will sell. Throw it on AliExpress, ship it to
Exactly.
someone in America. It doesn't matter. They don't care. So they'll do whatever is necessary to make a product that will sell. So as soon as somebody on the Western world makes something, and a lot of it was in the RC and hobby community, that gains any popularity, they just rip it off. They just copy it. They don't care. It doesn't make a difference. They just sell it. And if a store in the United States buys a batch of the product, even better. It's just a bonus. They get to sell a group at a time, and then they also keep selling on Banggood, AliExpress, whatever. It's all good. Everybody, they win.
So we have that problem. But then the other problem we have with the pilots is that the pilots don't think about high end and low end. If you think about a car, people know the difference between American muscle and
Yeah.
import, right? Like the car hobby, everybody understands that. But we go to the drone hobby, and it's just like, oh, this guy's doing, that's what's good. Let's all do that. But people don't think about how specific it is. You can build a drone that has, and it'll have that power and it'll feel good, but it won't have the agility and control. And you can build the one that has the agility, and it's not going to have, like, for instance, like your toothpicks, right? When you do the 1S, it's totally different than the 3S. And then even in that build, it's more about flight and characteristics than it is about being able to beat the living crap out of it.
So the quality argument, it unfortunately doesn't hold true in most hobby things, because even in cars, it doesn't hold true, because people will often equate a Toyota with garbage quality, poor quality, but in reality, Toyota just never adopted the product cycle mentality. So they just build everything to be as efficient as possible, as in the parts. They're not interested in making it last for like 2 years, so it breaks and you have to buy a new one. They're interested in making it good enough so that it will last the lifetime of the car. So Toyotas tend to last forever because they're built to last for the lifetime of the vehicle, whereas American cars typically fall apart down the road. At least parts of them fall apart because they have this idea of, okay, the car is only supposed to last 6 years, and then things have to break so that you go buy a new car. So it's purposefully built to fall apart, whereas Toyotas are not. But you will often equate a Toyota with garbage quality because they're not really a company that makes a lot of frills. They don't put a whole lot into the luxury of the car or anything. They're like, why? We don't need it. We need it to work. It's a vehicle. It's more utilitarian. So in this hobby world, it's actually often the case that the cheaper product will genuinely be better than the real or higher price product. So flight controllers in particular, a lot of them were copied and ripped off. The cheaper rip-offs were not even half the price, yet they had more memory, they were better manufactured, they improved the design, and everything about the board was better. So it was really tough because you would sometimes buy a piece of crap that ended up being really good, and so people would keep buying crap and recommend a bunch of crap, but then there's also a lot of crap out there, so you end up with stuff that's really junky. So it's really tough, and people are always hunting for, the best deal, the best this, the best that. But at the same time, just because you're spending, $50 on a motor, $100 on a flight controller, $200 on a speed controller, it doesn't mean it's going to be good quality. They can burn, they can fall apart just the same as the cheap stuff. So it's really tough to say, just because you spend money, it's good.
Oh,
And
absolutely. And like every product, like even with batteries, you can go one branded battery and each different one, like there'll be the ones that are good and the ones that are crap.
yeah, yeah, it's a really tough market. There's a lot of just misrepresentation of every product out there.
Well, yeah, and then the other problem is that then we have the when companies give you products, if you say anything bad, then they're probably not going to give you more products. So like that was
No,
another
that's
thing that
actually not true. That's actually
well,
surprisingly not true.
like for instance, like the Baby Hawk, the Baby Hawk HD, I really don't think that flew well.
Baby
Like the
Hawk
balance.
HD. That was all right. I mean, it flew fine. Flies fine. It was a good deal.
Yeah, but it's just the balance of something. The like when you have a good center of gravity and see like the flight controller can make up for certain things, but if you have a better center of gravity, when it turns, it's not going to be like a pancake. It's going to be more round,
Sure. But
right?
you also have to realize that that thing came out during a time when there were not a lot of products like it.
Hmm.
So that was somewhat revolutionary, and also at the price point that it came out at, it was just kind of not heard of. So it was really popular because of that, because it was like, okay, this is a very decent product, flies decent. Now today, it may not live up to standards. Also, as you go through this industry, this hobby, you acquire this understanding of how it works, how better builds fly, how things fly better, and so you are looking for a higher level of performance, which kind of ruins all the cheap products because they don't
Yeah,
really care. No one really pays attention to it.
yeah. But also even just putting like lots of people thought, 250, let's go as close to 250 as possible. Let's throw a
Terrible.
900, put an 850, and it's going to fly so much better when you put a 600 on it. It'll fly probably just as long, better characteristics, and better like control and everything. But everyone would be going and throwing the biggest battery they could on it, and
Yeah.
then like people wouldn't really think about all those things, and like that would be the stuff that I would just kind of obsess over. How can I get it
Yeah.
to when I spin it that it doesn't lug the weight around and stuff?
So people also have their own preferences. If you
Yeah.
fly one of Steele's crafts, it doesn't fly the same as one that you would want to fly because he prefers it a certain way. I prefer mine a certain way as well. I hate the weight on the bottom, but a lot of people love the weight on the bottom. I hate a battery underneath the quad. I think it flies terrible. It is very wonky. I can't do a roll. I can't get through any gap. It's just terrible for me to fly.
So you hate the race kind of formation.
I really dislike it. I mean, I could fly it, it's fine, but I don't like it. When you roll, it doesn't roll around the camera, it rolls around the battery, and it's just wonky.
Okay, that's interesting. That's because you, I think it's you and did you do the one where you tried doing weird vibration things with like a steel twisted
Yeah,
knot thing? Okay, because I get you and Dave C confused because both of you kind of did a lot of
So
different stuff
yeah, so
in the same time frame.
Dave C has a very so there's a this is an area where you can see how people have a very similar mindset and the way like a train of thought. So Dave C, he and I, if he was like my next door neighbor growing up, we'd be like the best of friends because we think the same. He has the same kinds of ideas that I have, and things he does is awesome because we think very alike.
Mhm.
He may not want to admit it, but I think that Chris Rosser and I also have a very similar train of thought. So similar that I thought that at the beginning he was just ripping off all of my videos and just putting in a scientific wording to make it look scientific so that he can gain followers and do all that stuff. Not that I really care. It's just like, why are you ripping me off, bro? But at the same time, I didn't recognize that, oh, no, this is not the case. He just thinks very similar to me. And a lot like me, he has a very big head about himself.
Well,
When
facts are facts, though. So that's the other thing. If something's true, it's true.
yeah, it's true to, yeah.
Like it doesn't matter how you get there. Like truth is always truth. So if you're right about something that's right, then anyone else that figures that out, it's kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's cool. He's doing some great work. He's really contributed a lot. He's done a lot of really impressive motor tests. He's the only one that's come up with a proper way to test the torque on the motors with his what's it called? He has a steel ring. I haven't watched most of his videos, but I watched the motor one because he came up with this method of putting like a metal circle on the motor and then measuring its acceleration rate. So it's like this weighty inertia steel disc that he puts on the motor and yeah, flywheel. Sorry, thank you so much. Puts a steel flywheel on the motor and then just measures the rate of acceleration, and that's a very easy and clear way to get a number, numerically measure the torque of the motor or the torque of the speed controller and how it works. Surprisingly, now that there's so many people in the industry that are working in the kamikaze drone, Ukraine drone kind of FPV space, they all have enough funding such that they are able to write like their own custom firmware for their ESCs and do special things. And there's this concept that I don't even fully I don't even begin to I don't even try to understand, but it's something called naturalization, where the speed controller is naturalized to the motor, such that the output of the speed controller matches what the motor can actually execute. So right now, we can take one speed controller, put it on any motor, and it works. But if you were to tune the speed controller to the motor, just one motor, you could improve the efficiency substantially, not only the efficiency, but the reliability of it as well. So
Because they're
just like
talking to each other perfectly. It's like a
right,
perfect handshake.
yeah, it's a perfect handshake. They're talking to each other perfectly. The speed controller is not over outputting, it's not under outputting. It fully knows what the motor is doing, and it's just harmony. So it works really well. That being said, these Ukrainian drones also have a mountain of noise and vibration issues, but their pilots, most of them don't really know what it's like to fly like a nice 5-inch. So they don't really care. And as long as it gets to the target, they're good. It's going to blow up anyways. It's fine.
Yeah. See, for me, I'll tell you something funny. Where are the so the whole thing, because the whole kind of anti. Okay, this person has a label. They have a degree, and then that gives you kind of like authority. Like that's the one thing that I never really like, kind of with Chris Rosser thing. Like he's an engineer. There's lots of people probably that are engineers doing stuff.
He's a great engineer, not just an engineer.
Yeah. But for instance, like the AOS 3.5, because that's what's in my category. That's what I kind of look at as my competition. So this is my 3.5, and 4mm T700 carbon built frame. It comes to about 30 grams. The from motor to motor, we're looking at 105 millimeters.
Okay.
Okay. So most of them, actually, I think Chris Rosser's is 120. Do you know?
I have no idea.
I think most of them.
It's really insignificant. So if you take that frame you're holding and then if you flex it diagonally,
yeah,
the arms are going to bend a bit.
So
it's because the carbon, the cut of the carbon is wrong.
Okay.
You cut it at 90 degrees. If you cut it the other way, if you cut it like that at a plus, your arms are going to be substantially stronger.
The pattern of the carbon.
Yeah.
So you're saying
that's the wrong patterning direction. They cut it like that. Correct. They cut it in an X. Right.
So the pattern, you're saying the way the pattern should be flipped.
Right. Well, okay. So this pattern you're looking at, that's a cosmetic layer. It just usually dictates the layers inside also, unless there's something special going on like quasi-isotropic or something else. Usually typical carbon is the same as the patterning on top.
Okay. But so for me, like my argument is, if you take his frame, which weighs about 50 grams, over 50 grams,
sure,
that 20-gram difference is huge.
Very big, yes.
Yeah. So if you take these little builds and you put so much weight on them, like this is going to outperform that.
In some ways, yeah. There's a the only real criticism I have of Chris Rosser's designs, they're all great. It's the main criticisms that I have are not real criticisms, and they're only personal. My only criticisms are that when he started making his designs, and I don't even know, I haven't looked at the new ones, but he didn't have the history of, not just the experience of using these things day in, day out constantly. So he didn't really pay attention to the convenience factor of the design. So his like battery straps were a little wonky. The way the frame was set up made it a little difficult to build, or something about that was just like annoying. And also, more importantly, he's not efficient with the weight of the frame. So he's focusing on one aspect, which is the resonance and vibrations, which is all fantastic, very, very important. And arguably the weight addition is worth it, but he doesn't have the experience of building and breaking, 500 designs to know where to improve weight distribution of the carbon. At the same time, he might have software that tells them, this area is a little bit weaker, make it stronger here, make that area weak. He can optimize it with software, but I've tried to go that route as well, and I've had I haven't had any success. Like I've had people from NASA, friends at NASA, try to tell me, look, the frame is weak here, strong there, fix this, fix that. But then once I did it, I didn't end up with something any better. You could just see it easy. Like, again, this is an area where it's very commonsensical. If you make carbon too thin, it's going to break. If it's an area that it's very common sense.
The weight to strength, like, so I've obsessed kind of over, there's this point where you make it stronger. Like there's a point where you make it lighter, it becomes better, but then it also becomes more fragile. There's a point at where you make it thicker and it makes it stronger, but then it also makes it have more momentum, which is going to be worse on impact also. So there's this delicate like kind of chart that you go up and down, and all you can only tell like through through testing and building and cracking, what is the right thickness for the arm at the right length? What is the right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
The world we're in today is a little bit more delicate because in order to get something that flies really well, you have to have the resonance and vibrations all well managed. And that is way more difficult than just kind of guessing and testing and doing this and doing that, because a lot of people just put a strut between the arms
yeah,
to avoid the twisting of the arm from the resonance of the motor spinning. But that doesn't solve it on actually most of the frames, because the arms are going to wobble in an oblique fashion depending on how you apply that strut. Even if it's symmetrical, it may not work the way it's supposed to. That's what Chris Rosser does very well. However, I know many people that have mixed results with this frame. I've never used this frame, so I don't know.
yeah.
But I know many people that have mixed results with his designs, which I'm not surprised, because I have tried using the finite element analysis. I can't get it to replicate reality at all. Like, it gets sort of close, but
But
it doesn't really
that's the
replicate
thing.
reality.
The tests versus real world, like those tests are good. Like I watch almost
They're
all of. I
excellent.
can't understand half the things he says. So like I'll get like the gist of it. But for instance, resonance, as the arms get longer, that becomes more of a problem. When you have these little things, there's not as much resonance in a 3-inch as there is in a 5-inch.
Oh, there's lots. There's
You think?
lots that there's a lot going on that you can't even mentally conceptualize. That's where that's Chris Rosser's single biggest contribution to the industry, is that his visualizations I had never seen. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I can start to understand what's going on. And that's what the finite element analysis tells me, is that when I put it through it and it shows me an exaggerated resonance movement, I now can start to just beginning to understand how the carbon moves and where these resonance things are coming from. We all thought it was just the motor spinning and the prop spinning, buzzing and shaking and whatnot. Let's make the arm as strong as possible. We focus more on the strength of the arm, and that's really secondary, because the strength of the arm, it's going to be strong. If you take care of the resonance, the arm is going to be plenty strong. Like, you can't, the resonance is harder to deal with than the fracture prone nature of the arm. So it's a lot more complicated than it seems. I've built lots of little crafts that fly like garbage because the resonance management is just annoying. You can't filter it out. Even though it's way up high in the frequency range, it still impacts the whole craft. And most importantly, at low RPM, the motors spinning, props spinning, they cause this wobble that can produce resonance in a way that makes your control feel like crap, because your flight controller can't read what's going on when the resonance is more of a wobble in like the sub 100 hertz, not even 100, sub 1 hertz range, and it makes it really tough for it to figure out what's going on. The worst part is when you get bigger, these large props, large things, they wobble. They straight up just wobble when they spin. So the flight controller literally has to deal with a wobble, and there's nothing it can do. It can't decipher a wobble from actual movement. It's impossible for it to know that. So you have to give it somewhat clean information at the sub 1 hertz level just to even get a chance at having something that flies reasonably well. It's really complicated. 5-inch happens to be this like magic medium where it works perfect for the physics of this planet, the physics of inertia, universe, whatever the hell's going on. The 4.9 to 5.2 inch range, prop range, is just a magical prop range that works exceptionally well. It's really hard to mess up. Really hard to mess up. They all fly at least well enough. It's when you get smaller that it becomes more difficult, and when you get bigger that it becomes a lot more difficult as well. It's a very interesting game that you ultimately don't know what the heck's going on. You kind of just get lucky a lot of the time, and then software makes up for the shortcomings most of the time, now that our software is actually good. So Chris Rosser's done a lot of work, but it's still hard. It's very difficult.
Because then I was thinking about just not resonance, but like core strength.
Sure.
Like, okay, so if you took 2 frames and you put them on a cylinder, and then
Mhm.
you put weights on both sides of opposite arms and started adding weight until it starts to crack or break. Is that a good way of testing core strength?
That's an irrelevant way to test core strength with respect to resonance.
No,
That's
and that's what
not,
I'm saying. Forget about resonance. Forget
yeah,
about
but
resonance. I'm
core
just talking
strength
about
is
like
not
just to
gonna,
test the strength. Because if you were to smash it into things, different smashes are going to be different. It's always different. But just to
yeah,
test the core strength of a frame, if you slowly added weights on both sides till it starts like breaking, wouldn't that be
that's
a
not a
good way?
reasonable way. No, because your arms are gonna break first. Your arms are
No,
almost always gonna break first.
no, the arms will break, but that's kind of the point, to see like which one's arms breaks first.
Sure, but that durability is irrelevant to flight performance. Like if you want that durability, you can go for it. That's fine. You can make a super thick frame. That's great, but it's not going to help you anywhere but fracture resistance, and it'll arguably make it. I mean, if you're just adding carbon weight for the sake of strength, it's going to make the flight quality worse.
Oh, absolutely. But so what I'm thinking though is that if you look at those two aspects, right? So if you have a frame that's heavier, you would expect it to actually break less because it has that weight and strength.
Only because carbon fiber is so light compared to its strength. That's true. But
Yes, but if the weight
if you're
wasn't put in
using
the right
wood,
places,
even then, because carbon fiber is actually such an amazing material that you could double the frame weight and it would still fly really fine, and you would get that super strength that you're after. If you're trying to make a frame out of like wood that's not nearly as strong, now you're going to get into the points where if you don't add the weight in the right areas, then you're going to start breaking in weird ways that you don't want. But carbon
Mhm.
fiber is this kind of like magical unicorn material that is genuinely impressive, and you can. It's so strong. I mean, it's the things that we can do is unreal. We take it for granted. It's really an incredible material that is super cheap for what it is, for how amazing it is. And like even that frame that you're holding, if it's cut from regular 090 carbon, it's gonna do fine. But I'm telling you, if you were to cut it at a plus orientation, you could probably cut the frame thickness in half and it would be just as strong.
Interesting. I don't know, man.
You think you don't
Because I
realize
think
it
I
until you
think
hold
about
it in your
even
hand.
the way it smacks, like because lots of time people put the protection right at the ends.
Mm-hmm.
But like for instance with this, I made it so that the diameter, like or the circle, is a little bit thicker than the motor, so that if it hits, it's going to hit the frame before it hits the motor.
If it hits at
And
the right angle, yeah.
because usually you're going to be hitting from the front, you're not usually going to be hitting like
Well,
if
you're
you're flying
usually hitting
straight.
stuff at an angle. You're not flying straight. You're flying like this.
Yeah, but like see like so for instance with bumpers.
Oh, I see. With those big bumpers on too. Okay.
Yeah, so with the bumpers, it's going to smack the bumpers before hitting the motor.
So then here's another argument. If you were to get rid of all that weight and those bumpers, you're going to have a craft that aerodynamically works better and you'll have more control to potentially avoid the crash.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for instance, what I'm usually flying, I'm flying this, and it can take a beating.
Much more, but you can't land and take off again easily.
I can land beautifully, beautifully. It
Not
lands
in grass.
perfectly.
Can't land in tall grass.
Not at okay. I can land gently in tall grass and then go pick it up. But to
That's
take
so
off,
fun.
I just got to be on a flat surface. I can take off from any flat surface, and I can land pretty nicely on any flat surface. And the battery is toilet tanked on top,
Yeah, it's
so that I can
perfect.
have,
It's
yeah, so
perfect.
I can have the GoPro and then no props in view. But
Just
then,
don't crash.
well, this is it's made to like film.
Yeah,
But if
yeah,
I take this
yeah.
off, I can crash. But I have to be somewhere like a nearby bando,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that same idea, adding weight to the edges, adding weight to the motors. So then I did something like this. So this is designed to the opposite. There's absolutely no protection. You just have the
Yeah.
motor, and you're able to have that pure. This has beautiful control. The way it flies and can control, it's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
that's preferred.
But the moment I have an accident, like the first time I had an accident, 2 broken motors.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So that would be more for like long range and gentle. Like it's not made to smash it all.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, this is why we started selling the motor bells separately from the motor base, because usually the base is fine, and then I have the manufacturer make the motors in a way that makes it super easy to replace the bell. So
Mhm.
it's like, it's to the point where some people will just have a bunch of props on bell, and instead of replacing a broken prop, they'll just replace the bell and the prop because it's easier than
Yeah.
replacing just the prop. You just unscrew that one screw at the bottom, the bell pops off, pop another one on, screw it on, you're finished. It's easier than getting your wrench to take the prop off. The screw on the
But
bottom is easier.
I'm an idiot. Like I'm a known idiot for just if I smash it,
Yeah,
it's not the bell, it's the whole
common.
thing. It's like it's
That,
gone.
that's just the way it goes. I can't say that after a decade of flying, I don't know, at some point, year 5 or 6, you notice that you stop breaking as much stuff.
Oh,
But
absolutely, absolutely.
it doesn't mean you're doing less stupid things. It just means that you're kind of learning how to fall, like snowboarding. Like you learn how to fall so that you don't break anything.
To me, I think it's more than that. It takes a long time to figure out what is the drone that you connect with, right? Like once you're connected, and the tune and the feel and the rates and everything is just like the first time you fly versus like your favorite drone that you fly, you can't even compare it because the first thing you flew, it didn't have a good tune. It wasn't like made for you. And when you have a drone that's kind of like made for you, it does fly way better.
So I would argue that's true, but I would also argue that the tune and the rates and all that stuff is less important than you just getting used to that setup, whatever it is. Because like 5 years ago, one of the top racing pilots was racing a craft that flew like garbage. He
Are
was
we talking
just
about NERC?
really who?
Are we talking about NERC or
No, no. This is way before nerd. Way
okay?
before nerd.
Because I'm like,
Um,
to me, NERC, that was like the last point where it was like anyone could kind of just go work and get it. And now we have people that are just like, they're going at it like
Yeah,
8 hours a day.
now
And
you
it's
can't. Now you
impossible.
can't compete. No, now these kids are insane. They're amazing. But it's he was flying something that was such garbage, but he was doing so exceptionally well with it that it kind of like breaks your mind to think, okay, now I need to have a craft that's super well tuned and super amazing. Like, no, you just need experience flying. You just need to have comfort with that craft and that setup, or you just need to get comfortable with the fact that you're just going to fly something that's garbage. So, I mean, I've flown a lot of stuff and I can pretty much pick up and fly anything at this point. But
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to be able to do the crazy things with the first flight. But you give me, a dozen batteries and I'll start doing the same things that I'll do with anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be, 10-foot blades. I'll do the same thing. It'll just have to be slower. It's nothing special. You just got to get used to what it is. It's this is an area where you gain like spatial ability as you use these crafts. Like if you look at Vanover, what he is able to do is like he has tuned a part of his brain that I don't think I'll ever have. I don't think most people will ever be able to tune. Like he has this spatial ability, this spatial awareness that is incredible. I mean, he's fitting his quad through a gap that is not even 1 millimeter of clearance. Like it is exactly the size of the quad, and he's doing it over and over and over, and it's unbelievable. Like this kid is as good as I could ever imagine an FPV pilot could possibly be with a single lens. Like you can't do anything else. This is as good as it gets. He's reached that 10,000 hour point. He is it. Him and then Min Chen also. Like these kids are They are as
Mention I
good
can't even
as it
watch
gets.
anymore because it's just like my brain can't keep up with it.
It's unreal what they can pull off, and also all the Koreans too. What's really interesting is that Korea has this problem where some Korean college students decided to blow up some bags full of helium and then fill them with some trash and send them over to North Korea. And North Korea, these things exploded and fell in North Korea, and they noticed and they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And now North Korea constantly sends bags of human feces and trash into South Korea.
No.
So they literally just blow up their trash bags. They blow them up full of helium, strap a bag of crap to them, and just send them over the city of Seoul. And they go up into the sky, and then they pop and they fall, and they just spread garbage all over the ground. Trash, garbage, poop. And so this is a huge political issue for South Korea. Also, a potential national security threat because they could fill it with some toxic gas or some crap. So I actually recently consulted for a military group that had funding for $100 million was the target budget to figure out a way to remove these things from the sky, to
Well,
remove these balloons from the
what is
sky.
transporting it? Is it a drone or it's just
No, no,
helium?
no.
Like it's
It's
just
just it's
the
just a
wind?
trash bag. It's a trash bag. Yeah, they send it up. So like if you think of how blimps fly, not blimps,
Yeah,
hot air balloons. Hot air balloons,
yeah.
they kind of work with the draft of the height of wind. So if you go higher, the wind will blow this way. If you go lower, the wind will blow this way, and that's how they kind of steer the hot air balloon. They'll, blow it up to go up, deflate it to come down, and they'll go with the wind draft. So all North Korea has to do is figure out what level they need these balloons to fly at to blow over the city. So it's actually really easy for North Korea to execute what they want to do, and it's really hard to pull these things out of the sky. And the government of Korea, their goal was to have a giant quad that they wanted to fly for 3 hours with 100 miles of range, and they needed it to fly at 30,000 feet. And they want to put a giant arm on it so that they can grab these balloons out of the sky and fly them down to the ground. And I'm like, you guys are living on another planet. There is no world in which this could possibly happen. You can never do this. I don't care what helicopter, what plane, there's nothing that can do this because as soon as you get close to this balloon, it's just going to blow around. As in, the people that came up with this, they didn't have even half a mind to think of logic of how balloons float in the air. So it's the craziest thing. I've now talked to so many like military groups.
What?
Even seeing at like, do you have any brain cells to be like, okay, what's going to happen? Let's have a thought experiment here to figure out how this might go down if we try to do the things that we want to do. Craziness. And so when I give them ideas and thoughts, they're always unhappy because I'm like, no, that's never going to happen. It's never going to work like that. How do I know? Because I've literally done it. I've literally played with what you want to do. And I'm telling you, it doesn't work like that. They go off and do it anyways. And then they come back. They're like, oh, shoot, I guess it's not possible because you literally can't even have a craft that flies for 4 hours. It doesn't exist. Unless it's a helicopter fueled by gas, it can't do it. It's amazing. It's amazing the discussions and the
How
overall
often does this happen?
recommendations that
How
I make.
often is this happening now?
It's like twice a year, I'll get like a random call from some group that was referred to me from somebody from somewhere that I spoke to. Who knows what? It's either like a fire department or a police agency or a governmental entity or just a consulting group that needs assistance thinking about things. And it's so fun. It's so fun to hear these problems and try to come up with solutions. And they invariably never take my advice, but they also almost never get to the solution. Like I was in Israel before October 7th, 2 years ago now, and I was pitching to them an FPV drone or just drones in general to fly up and down the Gaza Strip and just surveillance, just monitor the strip. And now, and they kicked me out of they didn't kick me out of the country. They just threw me away because they're like, we don't need you. We could do this ourselves. You know, we're so technically advanced. And I'm telling them like, okay, I'm sure you could do it yourself, but you know what? I've already figured out half of it. So with you and me, we could do this like next week. And now 4 or 5 years late, 6 years later, they still haven't figured it out. Still haven't come up with a good way to deal with this problem. And now October 7th happened, and now it's a disaster. And now they're shooting phantoms out of the sky that are carrying grenades. And this is the reality of the world we live in today. And now Ukraine is basically a high school science experiment. At this point, they're just like, they have boats, they have cars, they have flying things, they have planes. It's literally like a college science fair in Ukraine right now. It's Russia and Ukraine just using robots to kill each other, which is crazy, but also all of our dream to play with in the community, but we don't want to kill people. We'd
Yeah.
love to see a drone on drone fight, all FPV. It would be the most amazing televised content in the world to watch. Just no people. Just keep the people out of it. Just drones killing each other would be so fun.
Like bot battles with FPV.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I think. Did you ever experiment with the tag? Because I think you have to slow down. You have to slow them down a bit because it's like I think it's too hard when they're at like full speed.
Tag? Which tag?
Uh, TBS made like a thing where you can set up. You can actually set up your drones to kind of like play
Oh,
tag.
tag. Yeah, actually, that kid came from LA, not LA, like right around LA, and I was experimenting with him when he first came up with it. It's actually a really fun game. It is really difficult to get it to work to the point
Yeah.
where it's like laser tag, but it's very difficult to make it work in the way that you would expect it to work. So it's not you're not like shooting like tracer bullets where you can actually see the tag laser go. So it's
Yeah.
really tough to use because you don't see that. You don't have that interaction. When I happened to be in Croatia, we put paintball guns on our drones. It was tracer, like you'd fly around and you have tracers and you just shoot paintballs. I could target a person running away and just shoot them in the head with paintballs because I had tracer rounds. And it was so
Fun.
fun, but it was also so scary to see how easy it was. And this is what they're doing. They just started doing this in Ukraine. They started putting shotguns on drones to go and shoot other drones out of the sky. This is their strategy. Is to put shotguns on drones. That's the goal. A drone on
Wouldn't
drone
the
defense.
recoil like just doesn't? Wouldn't the recoil like just knock the
No,
drone?
no,
No,
it's
like the
actually fine.
shotgun.
Totally fine. The craft has its own attitude, so it holds its attitude and just floats back.
Crazy. What size? What size drone would that be?
Massive. These are large. These are like 14-inch props and big and up. So Ralph asked the stereo camera goggles and FPV. So there's a really fun story about that. When I was on that crazy show in Ukraine, or actually a couple of the events involved picking up like baskets on a boat out in the middle of the ocean and bringing them back. We were one of the two drones that had stereo vision. So back then there was stereo vision. You'd have two FPV feeds, one per eye. And so you'd have depth of field, which was super trippy because you had such precision. It was like your hand. You could just reach out and grab something. So it was really easy for us to get all this stuff because me and my partner Ricky, we had lots of experience flying FPV. So it's super easy for us to use FPV and just go pick up stuff. And every other team, they couldn't get even like I think one team got one basket and we got like 8 or 9 baskets because it was just so easy. Because you have that 3 depth of field and you have the skill of flying FPV. So yeah, stereo vision helps, but only in close quarters. And when I was in Israel, one of the tasks that they wanted me to execute was to put a grappling hook on on the top of a building. They wanted to place a grappling hook on a building. And I told them, yeah, super easy, stereo vision. I could put that thing, to an inch of accuracy wherever you want it to be. And they didn't believe me, but then I did it on the show literally 2 weeks later. And I showed them, I'm like, look, is this what you wanted me to do? This is, hey, I'm doing it. So if you want me to come and help you and do this, we could do it right now. Like, you could have somebody in your platoon place that grappling hook on the building. You don't have to shoot it up there and hope that it hooks correctly. It's useful, but it's also not that useful. Later on, when I got back to the States, I actually started experimenting with just using a single camera to pick up things, and you can get really good at that as well. So I came up with like a simple game where there's a hook on the end of the quad where you go and pick up things that are like sticking up out of the ground, and it works really well. You can get really, really accurate with it, and you could do it like every time, repeatable like 90% of the time, and it just comes with experience of doing it over and over. If you get really comfortable with your craft, you can do it. And I think somebody even came up with an improvement to the game. He came up with like a little 2-inch drone that he had like a servo on the end of it that would hook and let go. So he had these triangles that he would pick up and then go drop off in a goal and then come back and pick up another one. And I think that would be a super fun game to play if it ever became popular to, teammates playing with drones. Physically interacting with the environment is usually really difficult with drones. This would be a really cool way to play a game. Like if DRL had like a side competition like that, it would be super fun.
Want to put a like a little. I was thinking about making like a 3D print that can hold a Lindor chocolate
Yeah,
and just give chocolates to people.
that would be very fun as well. Let's see. Could it take down? Show.
This is a guy that pretends to be me, and it's entertaining. But he calls me a shellless turtle.
Oh,
I look like a shellless turtle, or give me some green paint so I can be Shrek.
no, I was thinking more of a one of those turtles on Mario that walk around.
Yeah.
That would work.
Yeah.
Well, it's been very nice chatting, but I have to go because my baby is about to wake up.
Yeah, it's all good. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for talking. It was great. Nice to meet you. And one more thing.
Yeah.
Okay, there was, I believe, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, when Mr. Steele flew the AOS, and then he said whatever, that bothered you a lot.
Well, Mr. Steele bothers everybody at some point. He just has a personality that his goal is to bother you, and that's some of the reason why he gained so much popularity as well. Not only from being early on, and also the Asian market loves him. He has this personality that is just rubs you the wrong way, and it makes you keep watching. So it's kind of like the algorithm showing you something that forces you to comment because it knows it kind of like jabs you and it forces you to interact with it. Steele's assessment of the AOS was, to say the least, just dumb because he disagrees with the entire notion of advancement. He's
But
not interested in it.
couldn't you also think of that like
He's
because
a
there
super
is some
cool guy. I've met him in person a number of times.
yeah.
Super cool guy. Like nothing up against him. Love the dude, but that's just his persona. That's how he is. He was really resistant to tri-blade props. For the longest time, he would only fly twin blades because he's like, no, one more blade. It's going to be so much worse, so much slower, and less efficient. And then lo and behold, I think it was what's his name, Final Glide. I forgot his like real name, Final Glidos. He was like, "No, you have to try tri-blades," and then he tried it, and he's like, "Oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread." And same thing when it came to polycarbonate props and all the other stuff. And to his to his credit, yeah, nothing flew as well as the original HQ glass fiber blade tri-blade, and still nothing does. But the more recent polycarbonates are a lot closer. But those original original glass nylon blades that HQ made are just a different kind of feel. They just have a different level of performance that we just don't enjoy today. Chad Noah, yep. That's the dude. Wow, it's been so long. I forgot these people's
There
names.
also there is something to, like, for instance, with Mr. Steele, he's flown the same thing. You know what I mean? The same parts. And when you get used to flying that same thing, you do have that connection in a different way. That even if you did fly something better, you might not fly it better because you're not used to the exact feel and everything. You
Right.
know?
So this is what he gets at, is that he's all about, spend time with the quad, get used to the quad, learn the quad. Your settings are not so important. The frame is not so important. All this jibber jabber is just noise. Just stop. Just get used to flying. And he's right about that, but he doesn't have to go about it in a way of like jabbing at other people's works, which are genuinely helpful and progressive, just because he doesn't understand and isn't interested. So it's unfortunate, but because he yields so much attention, it's unfortunate that he approaches things in that manner. But he's also not wrong. He's a guy with a lot of experience. He's been doing it a long time.
And who's
And
your
he's an
favorite?
excellent pilot.
Who's your favorite pilot and why?
Oh, it's Sharpou, of course, because he got
Okay.
so many people into it. Sharpou's a legend. I've met him many times. He still lives around LA. I haven't seen him for a couple years now, but he's truly a legend. There's no one, I think, that got as many people interested in FPV as Sharpou.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was great.
Sure.
And have fun with the kid.
Take care. How do I even exit?